Hi everyone, in this video I'll show you how to use array aggregator and iterator and what's the difference between them. We'll start with creating a new scenario. Let's skip this part. What we'll have at the start is JSON object. Here we will aggregate or create. Better to create JSON. Here we'll create a JSON, and for that we'll need to create a data structure. So we add a new data structure. Let's call it example. Structure. And here we can add the specifications, so the fields of this JSON object, or we can generate this JSON object. For this example, we'll use some generated JSON with this service called Macaru. I'll copy this preview here, and I can either use this manual specification interface to create this JSON, and it will consist of ID, first name, last name, and email. Or what I can do, simply insert this JSON, the sample data, into this generator, and it will generate these fields for me. Clicking save, and as you can see, it generated field name, first name, last name, and email. And for the field ID, the type is number, and for the remaining is text. Saving this, and we have this simple structure here. Then clicking save. So then we need to have the parse JSON as a first module in our template, then data structure example, and the JSON string again. So this module parses the string, the whatever string we have, and creates a JSON out of it. Let's try to run it. Okay, run anyway. And we see the output, the input is string, and the output is collection here. So the collection that consists of these 5 bundles. Now here we need to add a flow control module, which should be, of course, array aggregator. Now this array aggregator, as a source module, it uses this JSON module, and the target structure is custom. And here, as you can see, we have already the fields from the previous module. We have these fields that JSON also has, so we check them all, and we try to run it again. So now what we have, the output is 5 bundles, then here the input is 5 bundles as well, so it comes from the JSON, and the output, as you can see, we have only 1 bundle, and it's an array that consists of 5 elements here. So now, instead of 5 objects, we only have 1 object with 5 collection values. So this is how you use basically array aggregator, but let's go further a little, and let's split this up into 2 arrays, and let's see some difference. So let's say we want IDs from 1 to 3 to go to one array, and then we want IDs from 4 to 5, in this case, to go to another array. So we'll have 2 separate arrays. For this, we need a router here, and then we need to add these 2 modules here. So the first module would be the JSON, and it will be aggregate to JSON, so we're aggregating the array back to JSON. As a source module, we'll put router, and as a data structure, we'll have example structure here. Okay. Then here we also add JSON, and we also add this aggregate to JSON. So we're putting this back to the JSON for the easier output. So how do we filter? How do we filter the IDs? How do we make IDs from 1 to 3 go to this JSON object, and IDs from 4 to 5 go to this JSON object? Because now we have this array and it's just one object, so we can't really iterate through this object. For this we will need an iterator here. Let's choose iterator. So if array aggregator aggregates multiple bundles into one object, iterator does the opposite thing. Iterator iterates through the object and creates separate objects out of every array index. So we got this array here. Clicking save, and then let's try to run it, and we'll see what we get. So here in Iterator, clicking here, and as an input, Iterator receives an array, and then it outputs these array items as a separate bundles, as a separate collections. So basically this is what we had here, but we don't usually have this JSON as a first thing here, and we can't really go through it like this. So that's why if we want to iterate through the array that we receive somehow, we need the iterator. So now iterator tells this router that has like five items, 5 bundles, and this router now should filter between the IDs, and now this router should filter between these IDs and tell which ID, which item with which ID goes where. So for this we click on this link on this line, and we setting up a filter here. So the condition would be, now we take the flow control iterator, now we take this ID, and this, if this ID less, or let's say less than or equal to 3, then it goes to this JSON. And here we filter as well, so we take this ID. If this ID greater than greater than 3, which should not include 3, it goes here. So now let's try and test this. Running this once, run anyway. And as you see here, here went 3 items and here went 2 items. So here went bundle 1, 2, 3 with an ID 1. Yeah, so this rule works here. And this is not applied. This should be applied here. So yeah, so this is how it looks. Now let's say we want this JSON object which outputs as a JSON string, which doesn't work for us. Let's say we want this to be, yeah, by the way, we haven't put the data here, so let's just briefly put the right data, the right values into these keys over here. So we have the information, the actual information that we receive. So let's run it once again. So now we have this bundle, right? So now I have this string here, here and here. But how do we now again put that into array? So for that, again, we need array aggregator over here. Source model would be what is 9, and we don't have the right fields here. That's because we forgot to add the JSON parse JSON. Let's put it over here as well. So the same idea here. Example structure, JSON string comes from here, and here is the same thing. So now JSON string is dynamic. And this array aggregator should aggregate these fields, and the data should come from the parse JSON model. Clicking save. Here we're adding the array aggregator as well. Data comes from parse JSON model, and we take target structure should be, yeah, so here it is. Okay, save. Now let's run it, and as an output we should receive the one bundle, which should be array with 2 values here, correct, and here's 3 values. This one outputs three bundles because here in JSON aggregator we should have put the array aggregator as a source module, because if we put router here, it will of course aggregate 3 times, which does not work for us. And array aggregator, the initial source of the data should be the source model here. So now let's save and let's run it. So now we do have one output here, and as an input we receive 3 bundles, and as an output we have one bundle with 3 items in the array. And here we have all correctly the 2 items in the array. So that's a really simple tutorial for you, how to use array aggregator and how to use also the iterators and what's the difference between them. So thanks a lot for viewing, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thank you, bye.